Hello, everybody, and welcome to Earth 10 Antarctica. And this is basically a polar science class, and you are going to learn about a lot of different things about Earth's least explored and least understood continent. This first lecture is mostly an introduction, though. There will be a little bit of an overview of what type of material we will be covering, and I'll talk a little bit about my own experience and background and how that led to me teaching the course. So lectures this term will be in two parts. The first part, the one you're watching right now, will be an introduction to the course. The second part will be a little bit of a why Antarctica from my perspective. So what do we learn about in this class? And also, why do we offer this class as an elective? Well, so the why Antarctica question looms big, and the second half of this lecture kind of answers that for me a bit and maybe gives you a sense of why people might go to Antarctica in general. But this is an earth science class largely, but it is interdisciplinary. And the term interdisciplinary gets thrown around quite a bit, but here it's accurate because just the term polar science doesn't completely encompass what we cover. We're going to learn a lot about Antarctica, as well as a little bit about the Arctic and alpine regions like the Himalaya, because there are similarities, namely that they're both really cold. But we are also really interested in learning about what the human interaction has been like with Antarctica as well. Its extremely late discovery and the fact that it has never had an indigenous population, as well as the history of its exploration and the establishment of the Antarctic science programs that produce the science that we learn about in this class. And also, we will talk about climate change. And one thing I hope to emphasize in this class quite a bit is that we at UCSB have quite a long history of doing research in Antarctica, both in the geology department and in other departments. So our university has a strong Antarctica connection. Oops. So a little bit about me. This class is not about me, but I went to UCSB to get a master's and actually went to Antarctica for that. As you can see, my master's thesis has a lot of difficult to pronounce words, and it is basically about magma. It's basically about the chemistry of magma and what that tells us about plate tectonics. My background is mostly with using chemistry to get a sense of what makes rocks and minerals up, and more broadly, what that tells us about Earth processes like plate tectonics, which we will learn about in this course. I have done volcanology work in Iceland. I love volcanoes. I've also done work in SoCal. And outside of teaching here, I teach at City College sometimes and have also worked with the National Park Service. If you feel like asking me about any of these careers would be useful, feel free to email me. And that's going to be a big refrain in this class, especially because this is online. If you want to reach out to me, schedule times, send emails, please do that. Because take as many chances for that as you can get. And there will be quite a few Antarctica pictures that I took, like this panorama I took of one of the crosses near McMurdo. Not a lot of pictures of me from Antarctica, unfortunately. I will sort of briefly explain that. So that's me. Oh, and I also wanted to, something I will come back to actually, but that I want to point out now is that Mondays and Wednesdays, 3:30 to 5:30, I will be having the discussion sessions. Notice that 3:30 is when the class is scheduled to start in gold. That is not when the lecture is going to be hosted synchronously. In fact, there is no synchronous lecture this term, but that is when I will be available. You can also catch me by appointment. Now let's briefly meet your TAs. We have Richard Sanderson, who is the head TA this term because he's taught the class several times before. We have Rusha Bai, who is actually in China right now. So for some of you who might be out of the country taking this class, you're not alone. Some of your TAs are actually out of the country physically. She is in China, and Ugo Ortiz actually is in Ecuador right now. And then we have Sarah Nethercutt, and you'll notice that all of the hours for the TAs more or less with one exception, they correspond with section times on gold. Now, we'll talk more about labs, but the short answer is that you don't necessarily need to go to that lab section this term because labs are going to be conducted as online assignments. However, those times are when the TAs will be available for informal discussion sessions. And I really encourage you to go to those when you can because it's helpful to have someone look at your lab work and give you a sense of if you're understanding it well. Now, I highly suggest in regards to who you are assigned to on gold, because normally that's really important. Normally you go to the section you're assigned to and you don't go to any other section. I would prefer when you start needing help on your labs, if you at first contact the TA that you are assigned to on Gold, maybe just to spread it out. But the thing is, you don't strictly have to go to their sections, and you don't only have to talk to that TA. It's often very helpful to get help from 2 different TAs and get 2 different perspectives. Richard has a different experience from Sarah, Rucha has a different experience from Hugo, and then I've got my own experience. And speaking of that, you can ask me about lab stuff, and I'm actually usually very happy to talk about it. However, the TAs are your go-tos. So I would suggest start with them first, and then talk to me if you want a second or third opinion. And about the red time here, notice that Sarah, because of a scheduling issue, has 1 discussion session that is different from her Gold Lab section time. It's on the same day, just a bit later. That is the only exception to that rule. And that is also noted in the syllabus. A quick note, if you have not read the syllabus, I suggest doing so very soon. So we're going to talk now about how this class is actually going to work this term. This is actually the 3rd time I've taught this course, and the 2nd time completely online. And I would like to think that I learned some things from teaching it online before. One reason I'm doing everything asynchronously is that I discovered that trying to do any live broadcast for such a large class mostly just stressed me out a lot and didn't necessarily get that many people actually coming. So the way this is going to work is that you are going to want to think about the class on a week-by-week basis. You're going to want to think about what lectures are being released that week, what lab is due that week, what assignments you have coming up, whether you want to attend any of the lecture discussion sessions that week, especially if there's a review session, and whether you want to meet with any of the TAs. So lectures will be released on Mondays and Wednesdays in the morning or early afternoon, and you do not instantly have to watch them, but you should watch them within a day or 2. Oh, incoming, I have a kitty. She will probably make more than 1 appearance during these videos. Hi, Maki. And there she goes. Returning to the course subject, the labs will come out on Friday afternoon. So the first lab will actually show up this Friday, and they will then be due the following Friday. There is no lab due this Friday, so please do not worry. And the important thing that I want to emphasize, actually there's a couple things on this slide, but one is that for an asynchronous class, it can be very easy to just space out and lose track of what's due. I highly recommend looking at the syllabus now, and in whatever planner or planning app you use or whatnot, just go ahead and put test dates down, and just make sure that you have a sense of, okay, when are the reading assignments going to be due? When is the midterm going to be due? And not have it just creep up on you. I will remind you in lectures, but it's also then important that you look at the lecture slides, and even more importantly, watch the videos. And something that I will bring up a couple times, but I will not be specifying the due times. That is because for any date listed in the syllabus or on here, oh, I am so sorry the video's been in the way. But for any dates listed, it is due at 11:59 p.m., essentially just before midnight. So gauchospace is going to be where it's going to be your hub. The lecture videos are going to be posted there, and I'm going to put them in different formats. I'm going to have them listed on GauchoCast, which is UCSB's video hosting service. They will be on YouTube, and I will also just upload them as video files onto gauchospace. And you can watch them at your own leisure, but don't get too behind. Try to watch them within a day or 2 at the very least. Try to watch them before the next lectures come out, because then you will end up with a backlog and it will be harder to catch up without putting a lot of focus on it. I will be posting the slides and notes, so take a look at those, but I would not recommend studying off those alone. They are largely an outline, and watching the videos will likely help you understand the concepts better. And I will post a study guide closer to the midterm and the final. Now, there are going to be a number of assigned readings and videos. There is no textbook, however. I am generally actually very anti-textbook, because anytime I had to buy a textbook in college, I read about 1/10 of it, and now it's just sitting on my bookshelf collecting dust. So for this class, which is very, very diverse, and there's not a lot of books written about Antarctica that encompass everything that we want to talk about, it's not worth assigning a textbook. Anything I want you to read or watch, because I will sometimes be having you watch video clips, will be posted on GauchoSpace. And Those are all listed in the syllabus now and actually listed on gauchospace, at least as placeholders. There is not reading every single week, and it's usually going to be a couple of short articles or a 15-minute excerpt of a video that I will post. Try to stay on top of those. Try to watch them or read them around the same time as, or ideally before you watch the lectures. They are fair game for the quizzes and the tests, particularly for some of the short answers on the quizzes. And also, if there's anything else I can do to make this easier, let me know. YouTube does provide closed captioning, and that usually takes a day or two to show up. I can make some effort to fix the closed captioning to what extent I can. Let me know if there's anything specific that you'd like me to do. So, gauchospace. You are all most likely used to checking gauchospace a lot because you have been learning online probably for at least a couple of quarters by now. But it is where I will be putting everything. And I really do mean everything in this case. The actual assignments you submit will be there. The actual quizzes and exams you take will be there. The lecture slides will be there. The links to the videos for the lectures will be there. The readings will be there. The links for all of our Zoom meeting times, whether that's for me or the TAs, will be there. The syllabus is there. This is from a previous term. Don't worry if this doesn't look exactly like everything, but this is kind of what, if you haven't looked at gauchospace since I first sent you the email out, this is more or less what it looks like now. There's a course resources section at the top that has the syllabus and stuff that you'll want to refer to throughout the term, and then units for every week. And I do have every lab and quiz up there, at least in placeholder form. That means that I may not have written the exact assignment out, like if you were to look at it now, you would not know exactly what to do, but it does show you when they are due and what weeks which labs will be happening. And it's your responsibility to check for files, check gauchospace periodically, and submit assignments on time. I will post reminders in the lectures, but I won't be guiding you through every single due date. You will want to check gauchospace often, and you will want to check it in case you will want to check it for new lab files, and pretty much everything else. Now, speaking of lab, doing lab is going to be a challenge. And there are a total of 8 labs, none this week and none during dead week. You can work on the labs on your own time. Each Friday, the lab assignment and any required materials will be released. So every Friday, check gauchospace, make sure that you have seen all of the lab materials, like any maps or data that you need to use to complete the activity. And you will then have until 11:59 p.m. PST the following Friday to submit the lab. And something that I forgot to mention before, every time that I list is Pacific Standard Time. So if you're in China or you're in Finland or Ecuador or Argentina, just make sure that you are keeping that in mind, that you're not assuming that it's 11:59 local time. It's not. I'm in California and UCSB is in California, and that's kind of the standard time we end up using for an online class. Now, the TAs will be available during their designated section times. And again, I really do suggest going to your assigned TA on Gold first, and also contacting them as early as possible, because the worst thing is when the TAs are completely overwhelmed with questions on Friday afternoon. And I highly recommend attending at least some of their sessions. It's not required. It's not going to be a formal lecture that you have to sit at, but it's a chance to actually talk about the lab and figure out what the heck we want you to do, and also meet the TAs, because they're really cool people. They have experience teaching this class, and also they're grad students. I was a grad student pretty recently, but I'm the teacher. There's going to be some distance. It might be sometimes easier to talk about stuff with grad students than with a teacher. So no issue with that at all. Please talk to the TAs when you get a chance. They are wonderful people and they are very helpful. Something else I want to mention is that I will sometimes be having review sessions during my discussion sessions. Those are marked on the syllabus. I will briefly talk about the labs during those as well. Now, there's going to be 2 reading assignments. Those are basically the only homework you're going to have outside of the labs. And these are meant to engage you with societal perceptions of Antarctica and also how humanities disciplines interact with Antarctica, but also to see what's being done in Antarctica and how the news and popular news perceive that, and what scientists are writing about it. So likewise, you're going to do 2 separate assignments. For the first one, which is due on Sunday, February 14th, and I just realized that's Valentine's Day, you will be submitting a response to a news article, a popular or non-academic article. Like, it doesn't have, I use the term popular carefully because it doesn't have to be, because it can be as long as you want, but the point is you're not going to be writing about something that scientists have put out and had other scientists look at. You're basically going to be writing about what the journalists are writing about science. So something from The Guardian, The New York Times, NHK, the BBC. Stuff from other countries is completely fine. It has to be about Antarctica, but it needs to be in English because I speak a little bit of Spanish and a little bit of Japanese, but I'd prefer not to be sifting through any of those, and any other language I'm going to be pretty much lost with. Now it is a 300 to 400 word write-up, and we will have a more detailed rubric listed on gauchospace. To a big extent, it is a free response. However, there will be a couple points that you will want to make sure to address, and that will be listed on the gauchospace rubric. The second assignment is looking for a scientific article, something that scientists have written. And most of you have probably at some point used a research database at UCSB to look up a research article about something you had to write a paper on, or maybe you had to do that in high school. Closer to the due date, which is closer to when that assignment opens, which is it is due on March 7th. It will open quite a bit earlier than that. You'll notice that that's due near the end of the term. It will open shortly after the midterm, but I will post a rubric for that as well, and also a brief tutorial as to how you can effectively find Antarctica-related science articles using UCSB's databases. So more on that later. And we will be opening assignment number 1 soon. And I have this here just because I don't mind weird articles. This is a New York Times article about penguin feces and how that's actually one of the most biodiverse things on land in Antarctica, because frankly, not very much lives on land in Antarctica. Antarctica is desolate. The ocean is another story, but penguin poop feeds microorganisms. So if you want to write about something like this, go for it. I am not opposed to bizarre or gross topics. However, it has to be substantially Antarctica related, and it cannot be fictional. And this is the rubric. You need to summarize what is the point of the article, and also what did you not know about Antarctica before and what was interesting. And you need to have a citation including a link to the article. If when you submit this on gauchospace there is no link, that will lose you points. There are going to be 2 gauchospace quizzes this term, so not every single week. There will just be one roughly in between the start of the class and the midterm, and then another one roughly between the midterm and the final. They will function basically as check-ins, and they'll cover lecture material as well as readings and assigned videos. When the quiz is open, I will specify what precise lecture material is fair game. Do not miss the quizzes. They will not be dropped this term because there are only 2 of them, and they are a really important opportunity to give you a sense of whether you're getting a good understanding of the material, and they're a good practice for the exams. They will be mostly multiple choice, but there will be a couple of short answer questions, and those are places where general questions related to the readings or the movies might come up. They are closed notes, closed lecture slides, closed readings, so study before opening the quiz and don't refer to any of your reference material while you're taking it. That leads us into the exams, which are functionally going to be long gauchospace quizzes. The quizzes are open for 30 minutes. The exams will be open for 75 minutes. Those of you who might have DSPS accommodations, I will incorporate that into gauchospace. So I will take a look at that well before the exam and fit that in, and the quizzes as well, in case you're worried about that. The midterm exam will cover material from weeks 1 through 5. Something I want to note: the stuff in lecture 1, aka this, and my little "what did I do in Antarctica" lecture is not on the exam, because I'm not going to test you on what I was doing. That's just egotistical. But everything else is fair game. I will have a study guide, of course, that will outline the key topics and give you a sense of what to focus on. But in general, when you're looking at the slides, look for underlined terms and key terms. Look for underlined terms, bolded terms, and words in general. I am working on making my slides less wordy, so if there are words on the slides, there's a good chance that they are key terms, but I will try to emphasize them as much as I can. The final exam will be cumulative, and it will mostly cover material from weeks 6 through 9. Week 10 is dead week. So mostly focused on what we do after the midterm, but stuff is going to come up from before the midterm, and you will want to refer back to your notes from the first half of the course. It is closed notes also. And this is how the grading breakdown is going to work. You have basically half the class grade is from tests and quizzes, and half the grade is from not tests and quizzes, from labs and the reading assignments. I did try to not make the exams constitute an overwhelming amount, but you will want to study for them, and you definitely will not want to miss the dates. The quizzes and the exams, there will not be one time when you have to sit down and take them. They will open, and then the due dates on the syllabus will be when they close. So take them with enough time to do it before the due date. Especially don't do it at like 11 o'clock the night before, because then you'll be rushing and it will literally automatically close at 11:59 if you don't finish it on time. So please don't do that. Finish them. The midnight deadline is mostly there just to give you a chance if you're running a bit behind, but don't squeeze up right next to it. And I kind of made a little checklist for what kind of stuff you would want to do each week, and what you want to stay on top of. You want to make sure that you review the lecture slides, and that if you were and that you watch the video. So you want to watch the video ideally, but at the very least look at the slides in detail. Talk to me if you have any issues. My office hours are Mondays and Wednesdays from 3:30 to 5:30. On days marked with review in the syllabus, I will be holding a brief review session. And you will want to attend those sections. Also, I can make appointments if the times listed in the syllabus do not work. But you will have wanted to read any articles or watch any videos that are assigned. Check when the next assignment or quiz is due, even if it doesn't feel like one is coming up. Make sure that you've looked at this week's lab, made sure you know when it's due, and met with a TA if you needed to. And just regularly check gauchospace as well as your email for updates. Let's briefly talk extra credit, because extra credit is something that's become also harder from COVID. There's normally 3 things I do. You can listen to a radio program that is about science. We have historically had one at UCSB. I don't quite know what's up with it now. You can go on a geology hike, or you can attend a geology talk, because our department is still doing those virtually. Now, for the radio option, that is possibly not going to be an option this term. The Unknown Territories is a science-themed show on our very own radio station, actually, KCSB. And I have a radio show there, fun fact. It's folk-related, so nothing science-related. But I have talked about my Antarctic research on the Unknown Territories. That is one of the few times they've had geology. They normally don't have geology. If this does go back on the air, it's been on hiatus recently, then I will have more details on what you need to do to get extra credit for this. But you can basically listen to a program about science and write about it. You can also go to a geological point of interest or go on a hike, as long as it's open and you can do it without being close to too many people or crowding too many people, and then write about the geology or geography. Now, there's a good chance that if you maybe this is your first earth science class, you wouldn't know what to write about. Talk to me. You can tell me where you're based, and I can give you ideas. There's a decent chance I at least know what kind of interesting stuff there is around there. And the last thing is that on Thursdays at 2 p.m., I don't know when this will start, but next week or the week after, we will have Speakers Club talks hosted by UCSB Earth Science. Graduate students will present their research, and guest lecturers from other schools will also come in and present their research. And for any of these, the extra credit is to write a 300 to 400 word response, basically like one of the reading assignments, and send that to me by email. And if I accept it, as long as it's clear that you actually try to engage with this, I will accept it. With the talks, I understand you will probably not understand everything, because I don't understand everything when I go to those. But write about what you do understand, and I will add 2 points to your midterm score. You can do this twice per term, so 2 points 2 times at most. And I will have more info as to whether the radio option is viable soon. I apologize for not being able to give you a definite answer about that one right now. So that is it for part 1 of this lecture. I will resume recording with a brief sort of case study of why Antarctica from my perspective, because those people who go to Antarctica end up there for different reasons, whether it's Barbara Hillary or Shackleton or Werner Herzog, who will watch some of one of his movies about Antarctica, or me. So this will not be on the test, but the answer to why Antarctica is different for a lot of people, and that's what the second lecture is going to be.